Hey, I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex. We are in Top 10 Board Games of the Year season. You're going to see a lot of videos on the best games of the year, and that's great. And there were a lot of great games this year. I'm a bit of a crazy person, so I don't just do one Top 10 video. I do a bunch of different Top 10 videos. And the reason I do that is because, to me, the question of, is this game good or not, is kind of irrelevant. There's so many games that are coming out every year these days that a better question to me is this game good for me? Is this game right for me? And so I like to make various different top 10 videos because then that's a little bit more specific. You know, I put them into categories, and so if you're looking for that type of game, if you're that type of a gamer, then you can maybe more easily find the stuff that is right for you. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of these top 10 videos. I do top 10 party games, top 10 family games, top 10 big box strategy games, top cooperative games, top two-player games, top small box games, top card games, top unique games of the year, and it will all culminate in my overall top 10. I will put out a, hey, these are just my 10 favorite games of the year, you know, with no sort of categories, but I'm going to do a bunch of category videos along the way before we get to that top 10 overall. So hopefully you find something that you like. You know, I played about 300 games for the first time in the year 2024. That's not the most of anybody out there, but it is certainly a lot. And of those games, I would say about 200 were games that were released in 2024, you know, games that came out this year. Another 60 were games that kind of came out in previous years, and then another 40 were future games. You know, I played some prototypes and things like that of upcoming games. So I'm kicking off my top 10 games season with the top 10 new to me games in 2024. And so to be eligible for this video, these are games that came out 2022 or earlier. And part of the reason I do this video and why I sort of start my top 10 games of the year, you know, category videos with this one is that it's a reminder to myself that, like, I don't just have to play all the new hotness, you know? I mean, it's okay to, like, go back and play other things that you missed along the way. We get so caught up in, like, ooh, all the new things, and that's cool. I get it. There's a lot of new things that are great that are coming out all the time, but I also want to play some other games that I missed along the way. And so these are the top 10 of those types of games that I played in 2024. And, you know, a reminder to yourself that you can go do that as well. Play whatever you want. You know, don't let anybody gatekeep. Don't let anybody tell you what you should be playing. These are all great games. If you haven't had a chance to play them, I highly recommend them. So these are my top 10 new to me games in 2024. In spot number 10, I have El Grande. This originally came out in 1995, but there was a new printing this year, like a new updated graphics, art, that sort of stuff. And El Grande is sort of the game that kicked off area control. You know, it's a pure area control game. And, you know, maybe that's one of the reasons that it only hits number 10 on my list, because area control is not my favorite mechanism. I like it when it's mixed into other stuff, but this really is a pure area control game. But if you are a fan of area control, definitely check this one out, because it is definitely one of the best in that genre that I've ever played. You are playing cards down. Those will get you sort of an initiative order. They'll also add meeples to your supply, and then you will be placing meeples out on the board and trying to gain control of different regions, trying to fight everybody else for control of different regions. And that initiative order gets you cards. You can draft the card first or last based on what you play, and those cards are sort of gonna tell you how you can manipulate the board, how you can add meeples, how you can remove other people's meeples, how you can change things around. And so there's a lot of intrigue in the card play and how you're gonna change the board state and stuff like that. It is for sure a cutthroat game. You can screw other people over and stuff like that. So, know that going in. I feel like that is a lot of pure area control games, right? They are decently cutthroat, and maybe that's one of the reasons that it's not my favorite mechanism of all, but like El Grande is great, and I understand why it's sort of the grandfather of area control games now. I mean, some of the reason I like to go back and play some of these things is because it's like, oh, you have a place in board game history, and now I understand that place a little bit better, and I'm really glad that I got to play El Grande this year. Number 9 is The Bloody Inn, which originally came out in 2015. I feel a little bit bad putting The Bloody Inn on this video because it's really hard to get a copy. Like, it's never been reprinted. I don't know that there are plans to reprint it, so, be that as it may, you might not be able to get a copy. But if you know somebody that has a copy, or if you see one at a convention or something like that, it's definitely worth checking out. I got to play it sort of leading up to the Halloween season, and it's a really good Halloween-themed game. It is a dark and silly, funny theme. You are running an inn. You are sort of the proprietors of an inn, and you are murdering people and building annexes on your inn and burying them under the annexes and stuff. So it is definitely dark, but it's got really interesting card play. It's a really intuitive system because it's like, oh, you want to do that and the card is worth 1, then it's going to cost you 1. The card is worth 2, it's going to cost you 2. And so it's just really simple in how you pay for stuff and how you do different actions and things like that. And it's just a fun, you can't do everything in the game, you're like, do I need to build more annexes? If I murder this person and I can't bury their body and there happens to be a cop in the row, then I'm going to get screwed, so I don't want to do that. And so you're just sort of thinking about the different ways to murder and bury bodies the most efficiently, I don't think that is a sentence I ever expected to say, but, in The Bloody Inn, you want to murder and bury efficiently. So if you get a chance to play it, it is a great sort of Halloween-themed, dark but irreverent and silly themed game. One that plays in like 30 minutes and stuff like that. So it's a great game. Number 8 is the game Ostia, which came out in 2022. This is a super unique game. You are getting actions by doing a sort of Mancala rondel system. You have these ships in your supply, and you are dropping them off in your rondel of actions, and wherever you place the last ship, you get to take that action. And it's a really thinky game in a good way. You have to be planning turns and turns ahead because you're like, okay, if I do this and I drop this off here, then I'm going to take that action and then I can combo that with that so that I can set up this next one. I'll be able to do this and take that action. And it's one of those types of games where like I mumble my strategy out loud. I give away my strategy in the game because I'm like, okay, I need to do this, and then I do that, and then everybody's like, oh, okay, so we can block you there, and I'm like, no, you weren't supposed to hear that. That was for me. That was my inside thoughts. I was just saying them out loud. And so I just think it's a really interesting, unique game, and thematically, you're sort of you are doing these ports, and you're trading and doing ships and stuff like that. There was a pirate expansion that came out this year, which is one of the reasons I almost said pirate there. But in the base game, you're not pirates. You're just traders and stuff like that. But it's all about that sort of Mancala action selection that's really unique and interesting. So that's Ostia. Number 7 on my list is Viticulture Essential Edition from 2015. This, admittedly, has been sitting on my shelf of shame for many years. I've had Viticulture for probably 4 years, and I've never played it, so I finally forced myself to play it, and surprise, surprise, it is a good game. I think a lot of you already knew that. A lot of you have already played it, and I'm sorry it took me this long to get there, but I finally did. I've joined the crew. I'm making wine just like you. Viticulture Essential Edition it feels like kind of just a classic worker placement game. You are going to be placing workers, building up your wine production, selling your wine for points, and, there's nothing flashy about it. There's nothing wildly different about it. It's just solid. Like, everything works together well in the game. And, there's different ways to upgrade your production, and so some of the fun of the game is playing it multiple times and following different routes. I'm going to upgrade this early. I'm going to upgrade this early, trying different things. One of the things that Viticulture Essential Edition did that sort of has been used by a bunch of other games at this point is the Grande worker. You have a bunch of normal workers and then a Grande worker, and the Grande worker can go somewhere that somebody already is. And what a great change to that. Like, it makes it feel less punishing because you're not blocked out of spaces, but you only get one of those, so you have to use it wisely, and you have to think about how you're going to use it and stuff like that. It's just a really great system in worker placement that then a bunch of other games have taken and done. So if you like worker placement games, if you like wine-themed games, sort of agriculturally type games, then Viticulture is worth checking out for sure. Number 6 to me is Jamaica. This came out in 2007, and Jamaica is just fun. When I think about games, for me, a lot of times, I think about, is it a good game or not? But I also just think about, is it fun? Like, do I want to play this? Is this something that people enjoy when it gets to the table? And there's a lot of different reasons you can enjoy something, but Jamaica is a racing game, and it's just a good time. You know what I mean? It can play a bunch of different people, and it's probably better at higher player counts, so know that. But you are rolling dice and then playing cards, and those cards will activate the dice in different ways, and you are racing around the board and stopping in, pirate ports and getting treasure tokens and doing a bunch of different things. And you definitely can, screw people over. You can knock people back and do other stuff. And so it's a race where you're trying to get to the finish line, but the person who crosses the finish line first doesn't necessarily win, because there's ways to get sort of hidden tokens with points and stuff like that. And so, there's some intrigue even at the end. It's like, ooh, I think I won, but let's all flip our tokens and stuff like that. If you like racing games, if you like games that have a little bit of silliness, a little bit of cutthroatness, then Jamaica is a great game. It's plays pretty quickly, plays a bunch of people, and so I like it for that reason. It's one that I'm gonna bring. It's one that sort of, for me, goes in that same rotation as like a Camel Up or something like that, where I'm like, there's some strategy here, there's some choices, but it's also just silly fun. And so, yeah, Jamaica is a great game. Number 5 on my list of top 10 new-to-me games in 2024 is Orleans, which came out in 2014. Bag building is one of my favorite mechanisms of all time. Some of my top games of all time are things like Quacks of Quedlinburg or Wonderland's War, two well-known bag building games. And people have always told me, well, you got to go play Orleans. It's like the original bag building game. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'll get to it eventually. And then I got to play it at Dice Tower East this year. Some people were like, oh, I'm going to teach that right now. And I was like, yes, please, I've been wanting to play it. And, people talk about it as sort of one of the original bag building games, and I get it now. And it's great. And it is one of the original bag building games. So if you like some other bag building games like the titles I just mentioned, then definitely go check this out. You are adding all these different colored discs to your bag, and the different colored discs will be put on your own player boards in different spots and will get you benefits in different ways. They'll help you do different things on the board and get points in different ways and that sort of stuff. So it's just, it's really interesting of how you want to build your bag. Like, do I want to go for this or do I want to go for this, and how I'm going to focus, and everybody else is racing for this, so let me go for this. And it's just I love bag building games because there's a lot of strategy to it. There's a lot of interesting choices of how you want to build your bag and what you want to put in your bag. But there's also just that fun moment of, let's reach in and see what I got, and then you have to adapt, and you were like, oh man, I was hoping to do this thing this round, and now I didn't pull the stuff out of the bag, so let me change gears, let me change directions. And I just love those exciting moments in bag building games of pulling stuff and seeing what you got. So yeah, if you've never played Orleans and you like bag building, check it out. Number 4 on my list is Evergreen, which came out in 2022. There was a game that came out earlier called Photosynthesis that got a lot of hype because it had these tree standees, these tree miniatures in the game. And Photosynthesis was a great theme and a great production value, but I didn't actually like the game that much. I thought it was kind of plodding and not that interesting. Well, Evergreen is essentially a better version of Photosynthesis. They did some things that they sort of wanted to do in Photosynthesis but took out and added them back in there. So it's a little bit more complex, but it's just a more interesting game. And so it does the same thing in Photosynthesis where the sun is rotating around the board and your trees are casting shadows, and things that are in shadows aren't going to score. But there's just a lot more going on. There's a lot more paths to victory here. You can build other stuff besides trees. You can do other things on your board. Production-wise, it looks really cool too. There's all these little wooden, miniatures that you're adding into these slots on your board and stuff like that. If you like a nature-themed game, or if you were like me, that you were like, I wanted to like Photosynthesis more, then check out Evergreen. I don't feel like it's gotten as much attention as Photosynthesis did. I mean, it certainly did well the year it came out. It's not like nobody has played it, but I was really pleasantly surprised by this game because someone was like, oh, you didn't love Photosynthesis? Then try this one. And I was like, you're right. This is so much better. I really like this one. And so, yeah, it's just a great little game. And it's another one of those that, when I think about my wheelhouse, great strategic games that play in an hour or under are like some of the games I love the most, and that's Evergreen. Plays pretty quickly in under an hour, but still has a lot of interesting strategy and choices along the way. Number 3 for me is the game Mountain Goats, which originally came out in 2010. This is a small box filler game. And, when I talked about earlier that sometimes I'm just looking for games that are fun, Mountain Goats is just fun. It plays in 20 minutes. It is certainly a filler game, but it's one of my go-to filler games right now. It's one of my favorite games that All Play puts out, which is pretty wild because they have some great games, and it's just fun. I just want to play it. You are rolling dice and then moving up. There are different columns that represent different numbers, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you are sort of splitting the dice in any way you want and then moving your goats up that column that represents that number. And if you are at the top of that column on the mountain, you're sort of a king of a hill, and every time you activate that column, you get points, and someone else has to come get up to the top and knock you off of the top of that mountain. There's only one person can be at the top of a column, and so you're knocking each other off and getting back up there and getting points and stuff like that. And so it's just rolling dice and then choosing how to split the dice and moving up these different columns, and it's super fun, it's super quick, it's a great filler game. If you like dice rolling, if you want a good 20-minute small box game, it's only like that big, Mountain Goats is one of my favorite of that type of game for sure. Number 2 for me is the game Yokohama, which originally came out in 2016, but it was reprinted this year by Synapsis Games, and I got a copy of the reprint, and it's largely the same mechanically as the original game. One of the things that's different about this new version is they split some of the tiles. Instead of having like the sort of benefit track associated with the tile, now the benefit track is separate from the tile, and so those can be mixed and matched, and so there's just a little bit more variability, a little bit more replayability in the setup and stuff like that. But that's not why I like the game. The mechanics are why I like the game. It's a really unique, interesting worker placement game where you are dropping your little you have these little meeples, and you're dropping them off at tiles along the way, and then moving your president through your tiny meeples to the tile you want to go to, and then activating the ability there. But the power of the ability on each tile is the power of the action you get to do is determined by the number of your little small guys there, and including your president. So if you have like your president and 3 small guys, you could do something at a power of 4 there. Whereas over here, you only have 1 little guy and your president, that's a power of 2. It's not as powerful. So it's a really interesting system where you're just dropping off your guys each turn and trying to like build up actions and take actions efficiently and stuff like that. You know, it's a game that feels pretty big, like, you know, takes up a lot of table space, and, you know, it's a 2-hour game or something like that, but each turn individually, I feel like, is pretty quick. You're just taking that action, doing the thing, your turn. And so I like that in games. I get tired of games where there's like 10, 15-minute turns. I don't have any patience. And so I'm okay with a longer game as long as each individual turn is snappy and quick. And I feel like Yokohama does that in a cool way. So yeah, it just felt like a really unique and interesting worker placement game for me. And I like the idea of sort of building up your actions and using actions efficiently. My number 1 new to me game in 2024 is the game Medici. This also had a reprint this year from Steamforged Games. The original game came out in 1995, and I actually played multiple versions of this game this year because I played an old version of it, and then I got the new version, and then played that multiple times. I liked my first play of it so much that I wanted a copy, and I wanted to keep playing it. I love auction bidding games, and Medici is just a great auction bidding game. And in fact, this probably is like my number 2 auction bidding game of all time now. It doesn't quite overtake Ra for me. I love Ra so much. But this might be like my second favorite one in that genre, and one I want to keep playing a lot. One player is pulling these tokens, these tiles from a bag, and then they slot into your ship, and the different tiles have like different powers, and at any point you can start an auction. You can stop pulling stuff and go, okay, we're starting an auction here, and then everybody is bidding for whether they want those tiles to add to their ship or not. And they'll have different powers on them, they'll have different goods on them, and so you're moving up these different goods tracks when you earn that sort of stuff. But one of the coolest things, one of the most interesting things about the game is you are giving up points to earn those tiles. What you are bidding is your points in the game. So there's this really interesting push and pull of like, that would be really good for me, but how much am I willing to give up for that? How much am I willing to spend for that? And this is another one where like turns are super fast, but like the game still has this like interesting strategy where you're like constantly thinking about what other people are going for and who's gonna bid a lot on certain stuff. You know, I like player interaction in my games. I want there to be some social nature. I want there to be some like talking and stuff. And Medici has a lot of that where you're like, what? You're going for this? No, I want this. And, you know, there's like arguing at the table and social nature and, you know, try to outbid people for different stuff. And it's another one of those that plays in like an hour or less, but still has interesting choices and strategy along the way. So my number one new to me game in 2024 is the game Medici. All of these games are great. All of these games came out in previous years, so I recommend them all if you haven't had a chance to play them. I will be back soon with more of these top 10 videos in various different categories and stuff like that. But you know, there's a lot of great games that came out in 2024, but there's also a ton of great games that came out in previous years. So I'm glad I got to acknowledge some of those. So thank you so much for being here. Please like, subscribe, share the video, all that sort of stuff. I kind of hate saying it, but I feel like I'm supposed to, and so I say it here at the end of the video and just squeeze it in. Thank you again for being here. I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex.